Welcome back, ladies and gentlemen, to the Unstuck movement. I'm your host, Rob Z. This platform was created to help you break those chains in your life that are holding you back personally and professionally. Today, we have the powerful Joseph Drolshagen with us on the podcast. And Joseph, I'd love to dive in with a powerful question right off the jump. You know, one of the biggest lessons you said that you lived by, that your life was never limited by outside influences, but through your internal programming. I love talking about this kind of stuff. What was your internal programming that was holding you back? And what is that internal programming now?
Great start point, Rob. Good to be here with you. My start point, again, I grew up in Detroit, Michigan, when Detroit wasn't a nice place to be, in a very low income blue collar family. And what I grew up with, that internal conditioning that I walked around with, was that you got to struggle and work your tail off for everything you get, and that you got, life is a struggle. Really, that was another one. Life is a struggle. We have to struggle to make ends meet. We have to struggle, to try to get ahead, whether we do or not. And that's where I started out. At 22 years old, I had an instance happen in my life, and this huge opportunity came to me, and it came with ease. And as I started looking into it, the excitement almost immediately, dropped down into feelings of, I don't deserve this because I didn't work hard enough for it. And I actually let that opportunity pass me by.
I love this conversation. This is so good, because those limiting beliefs, that imposter syndrome, that self-sabotage, even if you want to achieve, where you want to go, if that programming's off, you're going to sabotage yourself in those situations. Absolutely. So, all right, we're going to get into that, man. This platform was created for the listener. If you want to find breakthrough in your life, right? These are true testimonies of breakthrough. People who have gone through really difficult things, found their way through, and now they tell the story. They made their mess their message. So I want this to inspire you to achieve higher in your life. We're sponsored by the Connected Leaders Academy. Check out connectedleadersacademy.com. And also, if you want to launch your own platform, start your own podcast, it's something you've been thinking about for a while. You want to make a lasting impact on people's lives. You want to bring incredible connections into your life personally and professionally. And you're the expert now at what you do, but you want to really be the go-to authority in your industry. I'd love to help you with that. You can join the wait list for the Pro Podcaster Academy at robzwentz.com. Today, we're talking mindset, growth, the subconscious mind, sales, alignment with Dr. Joseph Drolshagen. He has been featured in Fox, NBC, CBS, and USA News, and named one of the top business coaches in America for 4 consecutive years. As the creator of the SMT method, which we'll get into, he helps entrepreneurs and sales professionals rapidly accelerate business growth by reprogramming their subconscious mind. So going back to the beginning, and you were held back by this belief that you did not deserve this incredible opportunity that showed up in front of you. Was that a huge turning point for your life, that realization that you let that pass you by because of your limiting beliefs?
Really what it was, Rob, is it was like I had the awareness of it after the fact, after it was gone, and there was a sad, man, I really wanted that and everything else, and why can't it? But I had no idea what prevented it, any of that stuff. I mean, for the last 4 decades, I've answered that question and changed that around, but at that time it was almost like it created mass confusion within me, because I really, really wanted that, and it showed up. And the way I handled it and went about it, I couldn't understand, why would I do that? So it really created a lot of confusion, but it was the start point into the life I live today.
Talk about that confusion. Talk about, you really wanted to do this thing, but you physically, mentally pushed yourself out of it. How did you actually, what actually happened that you didn't take this opportunity? How did you sabotage yourself?
Yeah, so when it first happened, there was the excitement and everything else, but like I said, that quickly, deflated, and the fear started coming up, and the thoughts started coming up, like you don't deserve this. So then all of a sudden, like what happens when we have a thought like that? All these thoughts started coming about. It's someone, I'm never going to be successful at. There's no way this is actually going to work out. Da da da. To where I was just like, you know what? I just quit taking any action towards it at all.
Just let it. So you completely cut yourself off from it.
Yes.
And just let it pass you by. Yeah.
And the only thing that happened was that thought of, I didn't deserve this. And that started kicking off all of the other head noise that I heard, from the committee, I call it, that started saying things like, you don't deserve this. It's not going to work out anyways. I mean, you're not even, you're not working your ass off, or, excuse my language, but you're not, really doing all this stuff towards it and things like that. So, and then all of a sudden it was like, I just was like, just done, focused someplace else.
Yeah. And live with the regret of it too, right?
Sure. And there's been a lot of regrets in my life that I live with. Beyond that, I'll kind of walk you through another one that's a really big one for me is then I got into corporate America. I started doing sales. I never wanted to do sales. I never wanted anything to do with sales. But I got pulled into a company as a program manager, and they quickly moved me into sales. And I'm traveling 3,000 to 5,000 miles a week trying to build a territory, and really not making any much movement at all in the process of doing so. At the time I was married, my wife and I had 5 pregnancies. We had 2 of them that they were born at 24, 25 weeks past. And then my son was born. And then we had 2 more, like the first 2. And so when I say that, like, I adore my boy, like he's 29 years old. He'll be here in a couple of weeks. Like, I mean it, but on his first birthday, I wasn't at home celebrating the miraculousness of his birth. I was out trying to build territories down in Indiana. And to this day, if I talk too long about that, I'll get tears in my eyes. It still hurts really bad today. That and it wasn't that I didn't want to be there with them. It was that I was taught that a man gets a job, supports his family, and hopefully lives long enough to enjoy some time in retirement. Now, I didn't know this when that was going on. I didn't compare the two and understand it was that internal conditioning. But it drove me hard enough to miss that special day. And my son was 1. He didn't really notice, and and we just did something when I got back home and stuff. But in my heart, I missed that precious day.
Yeah.
Of my life.
Yeah, I could see how that would sit with you and start to rearrange your thoughts and the way you look at life, and wondering why you're doing what you're doing. When you mentioned the committee, that was in passing there. What is the committee?
The committee is the voice we hear in our head. The voice that when we want to do something, it starts going, well, who do you think you are? You can't do that. Or you're not working hard enough. We're in this, we live in the United States and under this programming that if we want something, we got to take massive actions, exhaustive efforts, and we'll be willing to trade off parts of our life to get it. That's not true. But it's been rung into us so often and so consistently that that's how we live. That's why when somebody's business, if they're not getting the growth they want, they typically work harder. They put in more hours, more efforts, and then that just decreases the results they get back from that.
What shifted for you? So this is obviously who you were. And I'm just speaking from personal experience. I can recall a time in my life, my previous marriage, my ex-wife, she had told me that I needed to change. And I said, I can't change. This is me. Like, you got to live with, I got to live with me. You got to live with me. You know what I mean? I didn't know that I could, I actually did not know that I could change. And I imagine you kind of felt the same way. It was like, you're on this programming. This is who I am. That's just how it is. This is how we are, right? From Detroit, Michigan. This is how it is. What switched? What started to flip that switch and change?
I think one of the things that switched for me is that I felt that there was something wrong with me. especially when that opportunity happened at 22 years old. I thought, man, there's something broken in me. So I tried counseling and group counseling and all that stuff through my 20s and kept diving into things. And then I went deeper, and then I got into books on because I knew it was something with me, but I didn't know what. So how to improve your self-esteem, or how to, and I would create experiments out of these things. Now, this is over a 4-decade period of doing this stuff, and I would create experiments, and I'd learn, but nothing changed in my results. So then I kicked it up and started getting into coaching programs like business coaching, sales coaching, things like that. And I experienced the same thing. Like, I would do all the things they told me I had to do in order to be successful. And I learned a lot, but I never really brought about any lasting change in any of it until I literally stumbled upon the mindset. And, we have a conscious mind. It's what we focus on and all that. But then we have a subconscious. And within that subconscious, and this is where I specialize, within that subconscious, we have what I call a motherboard of all of our programming, how we grew up, what was exemplified to us, our belief systems, our, patterns, our habits, all of that stuff is in there. And then that subconscious is so powerful because that's what triggers the brain waves to the actions we take or don't take. So once I start, and this is over probably about an 8-year period of what I just explained to you, me understanding. Right. But when I did that, it clicked in. That 22-year-old, it was that programming that was not allowing me to take those actions that would have led to, like achieving that opportunity in my life. And so it will cause procrastination. It will cause, and it all comes to us through that voice in our head, which is one of the ways we become aware. What are we hearing coming from the inside? What's that voice telling us? That's a good way to get an indication on what our programming is. So ultimately, the way the pathway works, I explained that. And the conscious mind is the knowing of what we want. So I've always known I wanted to make an impact in people's. Actually, when I started out, I didn't. I just wanted to fix my life. I wanted to fix my life, but when things are happening, I couldn't take those actions so there was a gap in there. Mm-hmm. Late Bob Proctor taught me this. There's a gap in there. So there's a gap between my knowing and my doing. Right. And so as I start understanding that programming and then shifting that programming, it brings it in line with my knowing of what I want. And now I'm sparking and taking those actions, and life it starts unfolding at a rapid pace to what we want to achieve, and starts that unfolding process of that.
You worked with Bob Proctor like in person?
I did work with Bob Proctor. He's one of my, yes.
Amazing. I love that. My mentor.
I'm that old.
Well, I was going to say my mentor who trained me in coaching also trained directly under Bob Proctor. So I love that. Just the stories she has are incredible. And I love Bob Proctor. He's amazing. Could you give me maybe, this is maybe a difficult question to answer on the spot, but like, what are some practical things that you literally started to do that you started to see that shift, right? You started to see for you. I know that these habits and things like that are not mysteries, but I'd love to know for you, what did you notice the habits that you put in place to change your subconscious mind really started to make a dramatic difference?
I started noticing it first, honestly, with the sales, because I was doing sales and I was traveling all that, and continuing to try and build territories and stuff. And I started noticing that I was working exhaustively and really getting nowhere. I mean, little dents is all I was having in what I was trying to achieve. And within a year of learning the tools and then making the shifts, and I found somebody who specialized in the subconscious to work with one-on-one and start bringing about. And I went from barely getting by in sales to landing $18 million year-over-year contracts, $22 million. The highest one was a $25 million year-over-year contract that overnight took a $50 million organization to a $75 million company. Incredible. And I started, like, those are huge ones. But I started noticing things in my personal life as well. Even working out and exercising and stuff, it was like I was doing less effort into it, but enjoying what I was doing. And I was gaining more size. I was gaining better health. I would, my blood pressure came down. I went off of cholesterol meds. Like, all these things started happening, even in my personal side of my life, my relationships. I mean, the marriage ended, but it was supposed to end. but it didn't kill me or crush me, or, and so like all kinds of things like that with, just across the board, really, where things started happening. It was like, it was almost uncomfortable at first to start experiencing those things working out without having to kill myself with effort and stuff to do it.
What was changing inside of you? I want, like, what practically was going on in that subconscious mind? What were you reprogramming in? How are you doing it to make that change? And I know this is leading us to the SMT method, which I want to know about. So talk about that path.
Yeah. Excuse me. And it was really like one of the things for me was, I grew up, money doesn't grow on trees. What do you think we are, the Rockefellers? Because I'm that old. And so, if we wanted to go to Dairy Queen, we would, because there were 5 kids, my mom and dad, they'd save up for us to go to Dairy Queen to get ice cream. I mean, that's what things were like. And so when I got into my 20s and I was repeating living that way and such. And today I just live in abundance. Like, money continually flows to me. Ideal clients continually show up to me. And those are the shifts and it's not like a one time. It's not like, this, some people claim you make this shift and then your life, but it's a journey where we open the door and make that quick shift, but then other shifts continue to follow to reinforce that shift that you made.
And it's repeated day after day. Do you have mantras, affirmations you're doing for yourself? I know some people do tapping. I know there's so many different things, right, to create these breakthroughs for yourself. Certain daily habits that you like to stick to.
I'll tell you the most powerful one of anything available right now, that in my belief, from my testament, from the 700 and some clients I've served over the past decade, is to have a dynamic vision for your life. And I'll explain that really quick. We all know some areas of what we want, right? People want $1 million. They want, a Jaguar. They want whatever it may be that they want, and, but most people I'll talk to and I'll say, so what do you want out of life? They can't tell me. They don't know. They've never because what it is they're so busy in the grind of trying to succeed at whatever they're involved in. So they never take the time to think. So what I do, and every business owner I work with, when we first start, I have to get them to throttle back a little bit and quit working 60, 70 hours a week and all that, massive actions and stuff. And we develop a dynamic vision. A dynamic vision covers every area of our life. And a dynamic vision, like a vision, like you think of a vision board, right? It has imagery to it. That's that could be a powerful vision. To elevate that to a dynamic vision, we put ourselves in that imagery. What's it feel like to live that life? What do I wear? Who do I talk to? What do I watch on TV? Like, what does that person, how does that person, that me in that vision live? And when we get that, now we have something powerful that we can go to. So a lot of times people do affirmations, they do readings. I read the Bible every morning and such, as part of my getting my day, adjusted right coming out of the chute. But really, we take time to get into that vision. And as we get into that vision and as we start aligning with that person, all of a sudden situations and circumstances start showing up to give us opportunities to see ourselves as that person. And that's the quickest way I've been able to help people achieve their vision in their life.
I love that so much, Joseph. I mean, from the Bible, right? Without vision, the people perish, right? You need vision. It's maybe the most misunderstood thing in our culture and the most important thing. And it's interesting because we were never brought up to like focus on that or even think about it. So if you've no framework for it, it can be really difficult to like put that vision together. Like, what does that even mean? How would I even decide those sorts of things? Right. So I'm just speaking from personal experience, but we all have something driving us and leaning into whatever that is that's driving us. And for me, I have 2 things that I focus on. So I just wanted to share this because I love where we're going with this conversation. When I feel like I'm burned out, I have a word for it. The word is just strain. And the strain looks like scribbling. It looks like just chaos. But then I have harmony. And harmony is like a gentle breeze blowing me and moving me forward. And so when I am in the strain, man, it's like I'm just tired, and nothing seems to be working properly. When I'm in harmony and that wind's blowing, it's like, oh, things are moving forward exactly how they're supposed to, and there's a feeling to it. Even when I say it right now, I can feel this. I can feel strength.
I can't too as you're describing it, Rob.
I can feel harmony, and so the reason I'm saying that is the best and most powerful things are always simple, right? It's not complicated. It can be very simple. And so I'm curious for you, that simplicity of how you apply that to your life and how you apply that to your clients' lives. How do you make that vision simple for them to reveal itself? Because I strained for a long time, even building the vision. I was straining, pushing myself to do it, right? But when you find harmony there's so much breakthrough. Can you speak to that a little bit?
Yeah, there's so many avenues for and tools that we use within the SMT to develop the vision. You know, there's like we sometimes we'll look at what don't you like about your life, because we know 180 degrees from that is what we want.
Yeah.
So if somebody's in that place, we look at it that way. And there's so many different avenues we take. We'll actually practice speaking the vision, just sparking it. Not have it written before we write it and things like that. Like, what do you want to do? What's that life look like? And I'll have them start describing that. And so I'll give you a really good instance. Is I had somebody I worked with, and they wanted to have a ocean house in Florida, right on the ocean. And so we started working together. And so I started saying, what's this house look like? Describe what you see. And then we would get to the point and we got the vision written. And then I would actually exercise with this person, and I'd have them pull up in the driveway. And what do they feel? What do they see? What are they looking at? And then get out of the vehicle. And what are the senses that you get? What are the smells you have? And now walk up and then walk into the house. And what does that feel like? And we go through to that level of depth of putting it on. And do you know, within a year and a half, that person had that house on the ocean in Florida.
Incredible.
And it almost like identical to the vision of the description, as far as where the light's coming in from and the views and the layout of the floors. And they didn't build the house. It was existing.
Is this a daily practice?
It is. Really
every morning,
because what we want to do is so even okay. Yes, because the more we put that vision on, the more we live in that vision, the sooner we're going to achieve that. Because it's all about, and none of this is philosophy, it's physics. It's all about energy flow. So if our energy is going into our problems and our squeaky wheels and all that stuff, then that's what we're going to continue to experience. But when we take a break from that, what I tell people is the vision is going to be the reality. So we're going to choose to believe that's the reality. Not what we're seeing. And what we're seeing right now is just what it looks like as that reality is unfolding. And then you take somebody and you get them a success in that, because everything within the SMT method is geared to bump up against those patterns, paradigms, habits, belief systems that are keeping us limited. And so when we identify them, then we can shift that. So that happens throughout the entire process. But in the beginning, when we're developing the vision and the person gets a spark, like, oh my God, I didn't even think something like that would be possible for me. And they get that success. Now they get more energy going into the vision, which ignites it quicker. So it's a process that feeds itself. One of the ways I differentiate from most other coaching programs is I don't have do A, B, and C and get D. The program and what ended up working for me is I had to have something that worked off of my uniqueness, not a one size fit all. So every client that I work with, it's based on their uniqueness of their patterns and their paradigms, that programming, but also their desires, the life they want to live, all of that feeds into it for the individual. And then as we start getting through it, and now we start bridging the gap from where we are to that vision, we start developing systems of accelerating habits unique to the individual. So everybody's not doing the same thing. Everybody's doing what the right thing is for them, though.
Yeah, I love that, man. Because especially in the culture that we live in, you can get so trapped in comparison. And a lot of people are doing great things, and a lot of people are trying to sell you the great things they did. And it's not saying that it's wrong. They want to help, but you're going to have to find your thing. They can help you. They can be models. They can be guides to get you to where you need to be to create your own vision, but it's got to be yours. And yes. I love that, because it's so important to know that vision, that thing that you're going for, is uniquely you. It's uniquely, and nobody else can have it. And no, it can't look like anybody else's because it's your own thing. So we're going to take a real quick pause here to shout out the sponsor of the podcast. When we come back, though, I want to talk about motivation versus mindset programming, and where do these two clash? What is the difference between, because motivation, is really powerful, and being intentional is really powerful, but without a mindset shift, without that mindset programming, it's difficult to maintain like that willpower, that sort of thing. So I want to talk about the difference between motivation and mindset when we come back in just a minute. Are you struggling to make consistent, valuable content for yourself? Do you want to have an efficient and effective way to create content that attracts the people that you want to connect with in life, the people you want to build relationships with in business? Do you want to be the go-to authority at what you do, at what you're great at? Would it be helpful for you if you had a platform that connects you to incredible people in your industry? The kind of platform that gets you leads and lands you clients without you having to beat down anybody's door or blow up anybody's inbox. Whether you're already creating content or you're desiring to start and it's something that's been kind of burning inside of you for a while, I urge you and encourage you to check out the Pro Podcaster Academy. Get started right now. Join the waitlist at robzwentz.com.
Hi, my name is Jose Escobar, and I'm the founder and CEO of the Connected Leaders Academy. We're a growing tribe, a community of entrepreneurs all over the world globally. If you're an entrepreneur and you're looking to grow personally and professionally, scale your influence, develop your skill sets, move the needle in your business, more clients, more money, more profit, the bottom line, and of course, grow your circle and your network like never before, join the Connected Leaders Academy today. Check me out on Instagram and on Facebook, the @ JASCO25. We look forward to having you join us. Take care.
Joseph, absolutely loving this conversation. This is so good. And I love talking to experts because it's no longer a question of like, does this work or doesn't it? Like the knowingness is everything. And I love the idea too. And I try to use this on a daily basis. Where there's fear, there's a lack of purpose. And the more purpose you have, the less fear there is, because the purpose drives the vision, or the vision drives the purpose. And that purpose gives you that confidence, and that fear starts to just drift away because the purpose is so strong. So that's just being said, that just popped in my head. I want to talk motivation versus mindset programming. How do they differentiate each other? How are they different from each other?
Motivation from mindset?
From mindset, yeah.
Well, we can all go listen to a keynote speaker who's really energized, all this stuff and everything, and walk out of there feeling like our whole life has changed, right? Within 72 hours, though, unless we take an action and do something different, we go back. So motivation, kind of comes and goes, right? Mm-hmm. But the mindset, the vision, once we get that vision, once we get that mindset aligned, now we have a continuous drive moving us forward. And what I love about the vision is, we can push, like through fear, things like that, we can push to get to where we want to get to. But that vision, having that dynamic vision, will start pulling us into it, that desire. It's got built-in motivation with it. So it starts pulling us in. So we're actually being pulled along, almost like going down, following down the stream, in like a kayak, rather than paddling upstream with it, is the difference between the two. And the vision is essential in helping to gain that ground.
Yeah, 100%. So as this started to become a staple of your life, as you started to make this massive shift, what are some of the key things that started to change in your life? You're in Detroit, Michigan. You've been paddling your way upstream for your entire life. Now it's time to start riding, going with the flow, riding the wave. What are some of those things that started to shift that you could see, oh man, this is changing. Oh, wow, my life is changing. Oh, holy cow, I'm thinking differently. What started to pop up? Because, right, whenever you're thinking a different way, opportunities could be right in front of you and you don't see them because of your mindset.
Absolutely. And part of that whole thing is when we're going about life 150 mile an hour, massive action, we just don't see those things. Yeah, I mean, you and I talked a little bit ahead of time, but there's so many changes in my life. I was taught that I was told my entire youth that I was going to work with my hands my whole life, following the pathway of the blue collar and struggle, that life was going to be a struggle. Anything you gained, you're going to, work, you're going to have to struggle for, and things like that and stuff. And as a result of that, I've told you about in sales what's happened. That then led me into management. That led me up to this kid that was going to work with his hands, was a vice president of sales for multiple organizations. I've helped organizations in bankruptcy back to profitability. And then within my team, I've taken a higher number of my sales team and elevated them to top producers. So I didn't have to have, instead of having a 15-person sales team, I could do it with 7 or 8, but they're at top producer status and stuff. And then as that started happening, then all of a sudden people started coming to me. I mean, to have my doctorate in psychology, to be writing a book on the SMT, just to develop the SMT method. That only came about because as I started doing this stuff and seeing the changes, it's like, man, so many people need this. Mm-hmm. And one of the things that's always been close to my heart is my parents were really, really good people. You know, they loved all 5 of us. They did everything they could do to give us a shot at a better life. And they didn't have these tools available. So whenever I started achieving this and seeing this change, it instantly diverted to, I want to help out as many people as I can in my life. My vision is to help millions of people change their life with the works that I've done. And I told you about an institute I'm going to be launching to certify other coaches in the SMT so we can expand that impact now and even after I'm gone from this place and up in heaven, I can, my life mattered. And even to say that to you, Rob, right now, that my life matters. I didn't think that growing up. I didn't think that as a young adult. I didn't plan to do anything that would ever impact somebody else's life because I was stuck in that lot I was born into. And today, man, to get these opportunities and to see these things happen, to be an ordained minister and get to deliver Sunday services and like my whole life, I get to help other people live better lives. It's overwhelming to me how blessed I am.
You're getting me all fired up, getting goosebumps over here. I love it. So good. And our society has done a great disservice by making us feel like we're this tiny little ball in the middle of space, just floating around. Everything happened by accident. Your life really was an accident, and you're kind of accidentally here, and it doesn't really mean anything. You're going to die, and you're going to go away, and that's it. It's sad. It's really sad. And that is, I hate to say by design, but you can say by design, to get us to give away our power and to think we don't have power and to think that God's not guiding us to something incredible in our life. And we're supposed to be helping and serving people, and we have unique gifts that we were given, and those gifts we're supposed to use to help other people, but also to spread the gospel, that is so foundational, which is why I think you mentioned the Bible, mentioned being an ordained minister. I love it, man. How does your faith play a part in this? Because I want to bring this up because anybody who's faith-based, who's listening or watching right now, oftentimes it's like Christians need to be broke. Like we should be broke. We should be helping people, but we shouldn't have money. And, that's a mindset. And that's my family also, right? So talk a little bit about that. How do you connect faith with growth, with abundance, with financial freedom and bring those together?
Yeah. And so, you mentioned the scripture earlier, but here's another one. These and even greater things shall you do. Today, that has meaning to me. Mm-hmm. My whole life growing up Catholic and hearing that, a couple times a year and things like that, it was like, I guess when Jesus comes back, he can do that and stuff. I had no idea it actually pertained to me. And one of the things I've had to do with all of this as I revamp that programming is I've had to reestablish who God is for me, to have an individual relationship with him. I've had to revamp that, and I've had to come up with, and this is one of the things I preach on Sundays and things like that is, and when teach people, talk to people about and stuff, is in order to really have a relationship with God, I had to know what I was developing that with. And it wasn't a Santa Claus God or things like that and stuff, and I had to redefine discipline and things like that because that was always a bad word for me when I heard discipline and stuff. But I had to allow myself to be disciplined in different ways. And I had to open up all these avenues. There's so much, that we run out of time talking about it all here. And so, but I had to start there. I had to define what do I need a higher power? What do I need God to be in my life? What, like, how, if he loves me and like, what does that need to be? And once I started diving into that and going into that and really taking time to figure that out is where I've come up with, the God of my understanding. I'm Christian. I believe Jesus Christ, all that, stuff. But I have a personal relationship with a God today of my understanding, not the church's understanding or not a minister's understanding or any, but of my understanding that works for me. And I can allow that guidance. And I can, you talked about this, great analogy, the scribblies versus the flow. In those scribble times, when I realize I'm there, I stop. There's times I go, God, I quit. I'm done for the day. And I'll just, and I'll sit, or I'll put and what it does is it pulls me away from living through my head and puts me back into a place of living through that connection. And through that connection is the only way my life would be what it is today. It's the only way the SMT, I like to kid around with from the old days. I'm not smart enough to build this SMT method that has the incredible impact it has on people's lives of my own accord. I've been led through this pathway.
Incredible, man. I love it. Yeah, it's the gift you were given, right? It's like your purpose, what you were brought here to do. Incredible. And you mentioned a second ago, and I think this is really important. Like you said, how discipline was a bad word to you. For me, discipline was a bad word. Leadership was a bad word. These words were things I didn't want to be a leader. That's responsibility. Discipline, that means I got to like do stuff that I don't want to do and quit doing things that I don't really want to do, but I'm doing anyways, And it's funny because that's like this mentality of like, those are bad things when being a leader of your own life, like what other option do you have? If you want the life you want to have, like you need to lead your life. You got to make the decisions. You've got to drive the boat. And so that's just so important. And those are like, when you talk about foundational, like fundamental things, those are so important and so foundational. So, as we come to the close of this, I want to give people an opportunity to connect with you because you offer up a free 15-minute conversation with yourself to discuss mindset alignment, get the tools for results. You can go to coachwithjoey.com. Talk a little bit about that. People want to connect, get on a call with you for 15 minutes. What can they expect during that call?
It's really whatever you want to bring into. It's not a sales call. I don't talk about the SMT. I don't pitch anything. It's nothing. It's truly just to serve and get to know people and get to share with them wherever they're coming from, is to share with them and help them get some tools, help them get some things that they can leave that call and start implementing and start seeing some changes happening in their life.
I love that. So make sure you guys do that. 15 minutes, absolutely complimentary. Go to coachwithjoey.com to get that for yourself. Also, if you are somebody who wants to launch your own platform, you've been wanting to start your own podcast for a while, I would love to help you with that. Be the authority in your space. Go to robzwentz.com, join the Pro Podcaster Academy. As we wrap this thing up, and listen, I don't want to, because I wanted to talk to you for another 5 hours. This thing could go on forever. There's a million questions, and you have so much authority in this space. What do you like to leave people with? If you have to connect with somebody one time and you've got to give them something that will change their life in that, short frame of time that you have with them, what do you tell them? What do you leave with them?
That you're never, ever limited by outside sources. You're never limited by state of the economy. You're never limited by competition. You're never limited by whatever it is. If and it's a really good indicator if it's pointing outside of you and that's your reason. That's some conditioning coming up right there for you to know that we're never limited outside of ourselves. Any limitation we experience is coming from that subconscious programming. And it's really easy, and it's exciting to actually start shifting that and seeing what is possible on the other side.
So if somebody's hearing that and they want to believe it, but they're like, man, that sounds crazy. That sounds too good to be true. What would you say is the first thing they could do today? They leave this episode, they're like, I want to make a change starting right now. What would you recommend they do? Something small that's very impactful.
I would pick an action into what it is you want to achieve. Pick one action, a small baby step action, whatever it is, and step into it. And if that works, take another one. Eventually, you're going to bump up against something that's going to push back at you. that's your programming right there.
Hmm.
And
There
that
you
would be
go.
a great time to schedule that 15-minute call, because then we could talk about what that is and get beyond it.
Yes, 100%. That's what I'm saying. If you're experiencing that today and you feel like, man, okay, I got to shift something, take that action today and then schedule the call and just dive in. Just start, just do. And just start somewhere. You got to start somewhere. You start making that difference, making that change inside of yourself. So I can't thank you enough for doing what you do, but also coming on here. I know you're a busy guy and you come on these podcasts, you share your wisdom, and you don't have to do that, but you do that to change lives. So I thank you for that.
I do that because it lights up my heart, man. I love living this life. Yeah. Hopefully we'll get a chance to do this again.
Yeah, man, I would love to. So another true testimony of breakthrough. Until next time, this has been the Unstuck Movement.